Hello Internet! I wanted to make a video on how two computer games, Neopets and Runescape, that I used to play heavily as a kid, influenced my financial thinking as an adult. As boring as that might sound, I promise it gets a little bit more interesting than that. As I'm writing the script for this video, I'm struggling to come up with an appropriate title. How Neopets/Runescape helped me make my first £10,000. Changed my financial thinking when growing up. Helped me buy my first house. I'm up for suggestions if you've got a better idea than what I've named the video now. I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now, and I said to my friend David, when I get 100 subscribers, I'd do just that. 100 subscribers. Close enough. Don't worry if you haven't played either of these games, as I'll explain my logic as I go, and I think the lessons I learn are quite universal. First off, we will start with Neopets. Neopets is a virtual pet website where you're tasked in looking after a virtual pet. You play games to earn a currency called Neopoints. This could be spent on food, weapons, cosmetics, among as many other things. But something you could do instead was put these Neopoints in the bank, and in doing so you earn a daily interest rate. There's an item in the game called Code Stones, which were used to increase your pet's power, and in turn you could battle other pets. Imagine a web-based version of Pokemon back in the early 2000s. I remember I could earn on average 20,000 Neopoints a day, and these code stones that I wanted to purchase a lot of were a relatively expensive item. They're about 3,000 to 4,000 Neopoints. And I worked out if I had 10 million Neopoints in the bank on interest alone, I could buy a code stone each day. Being the enthusiastic, adolescent, pre-teenager that I was, that was then my goal. And I'd do this by depositing at least half of my earnings into the bank daily. Unfortunately, I grew out of Neopets before I hit that 10 million goal, and at the rate of my earnings it would take me 2.7 years of playing non-stop before I got close to this number. So I started Neopets when I was 11 and stopped playing when I was about 14 or 15, and although becoming a multi-millionaire of Neopia was no longer a goal, fortunate for me playing Neopets had overlapped with my first ever paper round. And that saving technique within Neopets then transposed into me saving my paper round earnings. I started on one paper round at £15 a week, and I soon picked up a second paper round, and by my 15th birthday I had saved over £3,000. Apart from the odd birthday/Christmas card, this was solely from saving my paper round earnings. There was another feature on Neopets which worked as a daily reward system. From memory, Tombola gave you free items. The shrine would often give you a power up for your pets. Free food was given from the giant omelette and jelly. And at Christmas there was an advent calendar that gave you a lot of Christmas themed rewards. I'm sure there was more things, but I can't remember them at the moment. I'm certain it's against the rules of the game, but I would create multiple accounts to get multiple daily rewards. Transposing this into real life, you might be thinking this would lead to some type of fraud, and I'm fairly certain what I was doing was legal, but if not, everything that I'm mentioning now can be considered fiction and cannot be used in the court of law. So when I was 16, I created multiple bank accounts to earn all these monthly rewards. Halifax gave you free £5 if £1,000 touched the account. Santander gave you 6% interest rate on up to £2,500. Nationwide gave you 5% interest rate on up to £2,500. And I also put some money in something called an ISA at Scottish Widows that actually earned more than 10%, but you couldn't actually touch that money that year. You could also get a switching bonus, anything from £50 to £200 by switching direct debits. And if you close your accounts down when these perks would inevitably run out, you were eligible for the switching bonus the following year. This is something I did from 2007 until 2014, but unfortunately for me my bank records don't go back that far, so I can't tell you how much I earned from doing so. And I believe that playing Neopets played a strong role in me doing all of this. So after my Neopets phase was Runescape. Runescape being an MMO RPG. You'd have a character, you'd level up, you'd earn money, buy better gear, or reinvest in your skills that you could earn more money, then repeat. Again, this is a simplified explanation of Runescape, there was a lot more to it than that. And probably the most important lesson I learned from the game is, if something sounds too good to be true, then it most probably isn't. I started playing Runescape in 2005, and the game was filled with scams to try and get you to part with your hard-earned gold. Admittedly, I was a victim to some of these scams on a few occasions, but it was an important life lesson to learn. Once they've got you a few times, you learn to trust nobody. Since growing up, I've received hundreds of scam texts, emails, and even Facebook ads in my time. Maybe a more naive version of me would have fallen for this, I know a lot of smarter people than myself who have fallen for such scams. So I probably should credit some of my online street smart to RuneScape. Probably one of the more boring tasks in RuneScape would be fishing. You can sit there hours on hours watching the same animation. I broke my arm back in school and had to spend a few days at home, and rather than just watching TV, I decided to spend the whole day fishing. I woke up at 7 AM and fished for almost 20 hours straight to do the same thing for the next few days. And it's a weird thing to admit, but I managed to turn off the part of my brain that gets bored. Mix that in with stubbornness and you can accomplish almost anything. You'd be surprised to learn how beneficial doing this can be. As an off-topic example, training for the marathon. Being able to run for 3 to 4 hours straight, you need to turn off that part of your brain that's constantly begging you to stop. And with that same logic, I was able to implement it in my work ethic. I left school at the age of 17 and decided not to go to university as the majority of my friends were. The main reason being, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. The plan was to spend the equivalent 3 years that would have been at uni earning as much money as physically possible. Similar to my Neopets 10 million Neopoints goal, I wanted to earn £10,000 by the end of the year so that the interest rate, being 5% at the time, would be enough to pay for a holiday each year. My most horrific career experience was to work my weekends at the pub, my weekdays at a call centre, and then my evenings at a local supermarket. At some point during these 3 years, I also signed up to an IT apprenticeship, which led to a job in London. And I ended up leaving my call centre job, but keeping everything else. Essentially sleeping 5 hours top every single night. I think I worked for about 4 months without a day off. But at the end of it, I made well over £10,000, and this was before I was even 20. I don't recommend anyone do this, as it wasn't good for me mentally, physically, in any way. The sheer skill and stubbornness I think I learned from the monotonous fishing in RuneScape, and it allowed me to do this relatively easy, although I did moan on Facebook a lot. Okay, back to RuneScape. We had a clan called Fireblades. There was a location in the game where you could kill other players and take a portion of their items. Generally you go out there as a bigger group. The bigger and stronger your clan was, the better chance you had against its opposing clans and other players. As our clan, we developed a concept to help everyone get stronger and wealthier. Rather than buying materials from randomers online, we made an effort to keep all our financials local to the clan. I remember I had several friends fighting dragons to collect dragon hides, got friends collecting rune essence, among many other things. And in turn we were a stronger clan for it. And I guess I kept a similar tradition as I got older, as I got my friends' paper rounds, jobs in the call centre, jobs at the pub, and when I started working in London I referred 4 people. So one of the final points I wanted to touch on that I learned from both games was cosmetics. In Neopets you could have expensive paintbrushes that would change your pet's look, but wouldn't offer any other benefits. RuneScape had gold trimmed armour, and although it looked cool, it offered no stats increase. I get the idea that these things can be considered symbols of wealth. People often fall down the rabbit hole of having the best branded clothes, aftershaves, nice cars, etc. At the end of the day, a shirt is a shirt, if it costs £3 from Primark or £50 from Ted Baker. Again, I think this all stemmed from me playing Neopets and RuneScape and making my own mind up rather than following social norms. A couple of things I wanted to say before I wrap up the video. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. If you have played any game whatsoever and it's had a positive impact on you, please let me know in the comments below. So none of this video is telling you how to save or even suggesting my method was a good one. So just remember, I'm just someone who makes the odd video online once in a while, and it's all opinion. And it's probably worth mentioning that I come from a lower middle class family of hard-working parents that enabled me to be able to save during these teen years. When I've told people the brief version of this story, they've said something like, "You're smart for doing such a thing." I'm not smart. Thank you ever so much for watching so far, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to share this with your Neopets and RuneScape friends, as I'm sure there'll be some people out there with similar experiences. I also made a video on how I have been bad at spending money, so maybe check that video out also. Cheers!